We'd travelled Europe, Scotland, Himalayas, all on motorbikes, and the wheels came off, so to speak, on the M20, which is a bit galling, but that's the way it played out. You didn't see it coming. There was no question of, oh God, they're in front of me, what am I going to do now? Completely out of the blue, I sort of half felt as in some sort of otherworld state, tumbling around, and then sort of felt myself hit the floor, and then really after that, for almost days afterwards, it was just sort of in and out of consciousness and such like. As far as we understand it, and this was a description given by somebody who very kindly stopped behind us, there was the archetypal white van was coming at great speed, 90 plus probably, in the fast lane, undertook somebody who was in the fast lane into the middle, and then lost control. As they lost control, they hit us.
I mean, I remember coming to on the hard shoulder and somebody holding my helmet, and I couldn't hear. I'd had a brain bleed, I know that now, but I could see the person's lips moving, but I couldn't hear anything.
I mean, the major consideration looking back on it is that we should have been dead.
Yes.
It's as straightforward as that.
Yeah.
I mean, if it had happened 20 feet further on, then there would have been crash barriers, and instead of sliding across grass, you would have slid into a solid metal pole. If the car had been following a little bit closer, or you'd bounced the other way, there's so many circumstances that had to align in the right way to actually be sitting here.
You know, both my legs were broken, I'd had a brain bleed, you know. My overwhelming desire was to be okay so that I'd be there for John. But all the time, you just kept thinking, you know, just can't believe I'm still here, really.
The major things were the leg. I mean, basically, we turned up at King's on that day, and the particular surgeons in A&E on that day decided this is probably worth saving, or were trying to save. When it came to actually saving the leg, it wasn't just a question of putting it back. There was an immense amount of plastic surgery. So, I mean, St Thomas's, I think it was about a 19-hour operation, and then 8 weeks in hospital at least, sort of recovering from that.
And then there was the very harsh conversation with me where they talked about the fact that, you know, they were going to take him to operate, and he said, "This is a very serious operation." And I said, "Oh, you'll save his leg, will you?" And they said, "It's a very serious operation."
You're in a wheelchair with the bit of you which is most at risk straight out in front of you. Every time it goes up a bump or a curb, you can feel it moving. And then you're being incredibly protective about it, because there's a whole bunch of people getting on with their lives who don't really realise how you are.
I was still working full-time as a head teacher. I was doing ridiculous hours, you know. He was on his own in the house, he couldn't get out at all. He spent the whole day, you know, sitting in a park and all with his leg up in the air, and probably a few years really, yeah. In post-accident, that he came to the reality that no, this is a lifetime disability, and I'm not going to be back on the ski slopes, and I am not going to walk across the field with Della, and we won't hike the Yorkshire Dales and do those kinds of things that we just took as the kind of normal things we did together. You know, all those plans were just destroyed on that day by one person's reckless act. If the MIB hadn't been there, there are a lot of things that John needed and were essential to his recovery that I wouldn't have had any idea were there, or how to get them. I mean, the classic one is John has a very specialised tailor-made boot for his foot, which was handmade personally for him, and has made a fundamental difference. Without the MIB, I think we would have missed out on a lot of opportunities to make John's life as good as it has been, which was on account of the fact that the MIB had the knowledge to put us on the right path there. The post-traumatic shock side of it was more evident to me. I struggled to drive the M20 past where the accident actually was, and my parents live the other side of the Dartford Tunnel, so that was something that was really quite tricky for me. I did have 6 weeks worth of therapy, which was very well organised for me and sorted out by the MIB.
It's my understanding that the MIB, as part of your motor insurance, you do pay in towards this central fund. Without that central fund, in the cases of, hit and run around, who on earth would you claim any damages against? It's purely because an organisation exists to collect and manage that money that makes situations like this a lot more palatable. The icing on the cake in many respects is they're not just doling out money, they're doling out help and advice as well.
From a personal point of view, actually, I will never forget, and if I ever had the opportunity to meet that person, I would like them to know that 8, 10, 20 years down the line, I will never forget what that person did to us. That person's actions on us weren't just us, we have 3 children, it was horrendous for them to cope with it. My parents who were retired and enjoying their lives were suddenly carers to me again. A moment of your stupid actions can transform the lives of 2 people who, up until that time, had done their best to live life by a moral code which you clearly don't have.